Welcome back. So today's setting is going to be a little bit more casual as we are kind of getting intimate with you guys and really sharing stories that we haven't told anyone. These are stories about our life that have helped us and made us stronger in our relationship with God through all the darkness and even those moments where we just felt that there were no hope. And a recap from last week, we introduced a new character into our life, into the live stream, and that is our daughter, London. And she has gone through so much. Even when she was just conceived, there was moments where we thought that there was a miscarriage with her and all that stuff. And she was born premature. And on top of that, she was born with a tumor in her left lung. Good thing it wasn't cancerous, but, so we were in Houston because she was born with so many complications. And they said, you just can't leave Houston. We went for a checkup and we ended up staying there for 3 months. Sarah was pregnant. Sarah had London. London had to get a little, fattened up a little bit before they did surgery. And then even after that, they did the surgery and she was so tiny that they had to remove this tumor. And it was just a crazy moment in our lives because we knew nobody in Houston. We just went there for a checkup, and we ended up staying there for 3 months. Yeah. We were at the Ronald McDonald House. Hey.
What up?
We were at friends' house. We were at hotels. And just a shout out to the youth pastor of youth pastors, Matt Rule, yes. Who is over the youth pastors in Texas in that region. He heard about what we were going through, and he came to visit us in the hospital, and he said, Carlos, I'm going to go on vacation for 2 weeks. Here are the keys to my house. My house is yours, which was a breath of fresh air because we had been in, with Isaac, with our son, we had just been like...
He had just turned 2.
Nomadic. We had just kind of felt like we were going from place to place. So we went to his house, and there was a huge just basket there as soon as we walked in, and he had all kinds of gift cards. So
Pastor Matt, tears. It was amazing.
So Pastor Matt and your family, thank you so much for that. It really means a lot going through these moments just to have that support. And then London got surgery, and we just felt like we could relax. The worst is behind us. Yeah. What happened in Houston is going to stay in Houston. We're going to go back to the city where we were working at.
Everything's back to normal.
And begin our life as just pastors and everything else that God has next for us. And just all the dreams that we've had, all the expectations of having a daddy's girl and walking her down the aisle and going on daddy dates and stalking her with a shotgun when she went on her first date. And just going through all these moments. And I'm like, all right, life is finally back to normal. We can start talking now about more kids, and stuff like that. And 6 months into it, we talked a little bit in detail last week, but 6 months into it, we found out that London had a deformed brain. It was underdeveloped. It's a crazy thing called Miller-Dieker lissencephaly, where it pretty much means that she has a smooth brain. I did not know what was a big deal about that, but apparently it was a big deal because it just means that it's an underdeveloped brain. And it kind of hit Sarah harder first. I'm one of those, whatever is wrong, I'm going to fix it. Whatever is wrong, I don't accept it until I feel like I can't figure it out. Until I feel it's really a dead end. But Sarah's mom is a doctor, and when the doctor gave us that news, Sarah took it, quicker than I did because I just left more room for error than she did. Yeah. And so that moment she found out that, that London had all this stuff, I called her, I told her about it. And pretty much the doctors, what did the doctors say? I'll let you talk. I'm doing all the talking here.
No, you sound great. I like your voice. No, but we had, been there and stuff, and we thought everything was over. And now, if you remembered from last week, or if you were here and stuff, we had found our daughter completely, blue. And we found out that she was having all these seizures, and we found out about the Miller-Dieker lissencephaly. And as we began to learn more about this diagnosis, we found out that, the doctor let us know that she probably wouldn't be living past the age of 2, that she was her brain was like so bad that she would be kind of like a vegetable, that she was just kind of going to be chilling. And they even were like, you really need to live right next to a children's hospital, because with her diagnosis, she could be there at one moment and then just stop breathing at the next. And we're like, say what? Like, you've got to be kidding me. Like, well, all this information just kind of fell down on us, where we were just like, I don't even know how to deal with this. Like, how do you take something like that in? And so, last week, we shared a lot about finding out about everything and finding out about the problems and stuff. But this week, we want to be able to let you guys know what it was that God has done inside of our lives through this.
It's very easy, when someone goes through a hardship, when someone goes through a loss, when someone goes through a depression moment, when someone is going through something very difficult, to just put the brakes on life and just stay there and just kind of give up.
Yeah.
And we had that moment, and I never imagined that happening to me, that I would have a child that it's not even special needs, because it's like you're holding a child that doctors say will not live past the age of 2, and is fully dependent upon you. And you just, I wish they would have told me about this, when I got married or when I became a young adult.
This
like,
just
hey,
might happen.
This is, but it just, you're unprepared and you're just going through life. And many of you're going through life and you live through life, and there's a lot of tragic things that just happened all of a sudden.
Yeah.
And one of the things about this story and about this special circumstance is that we relive it time and time again. You feel like, okay, could this be the moment that London could go? How many days has she been in the hospital?
Oh, it's countless.
Countless days.
Yeah.
We can count how many times in one hand the doctors have told us, do you want to have your daughter live at this moment, or do you not want to have your daughter? How far are you willing to go to save your daughter? Because she's really sick right now. And
like all the way to the point of where you're sitting there and you're looking at your child, and she's like lost all response in her pupils. She's white all the way down to her lips, and they look and they say, I'm sorry, I never like having this discussion with patients. And you're just like, as soon as they say that, you know exactly what they're going to say. And it's like everything just freezes.
Those moments in the emergency room when it's filled with doctors, and I have to be calm because my 5-year-old is always with us, and he wants to be a part of everything. And we got to be strong for him, and we have to be a certain way. But, London has her own story. London goes through her own thing. But whatever happens to a child, when you have kids, or if many of you that do have kids, whatever happens to your kids happens to you. And so we've had to go through this and realize we cannot stop our life. I've seen many people through this process. You venture into a whole new world of people and relationships when you are in this kind of moment.
Yeah.
And I have seen many couples, a lot of couples, that just stop their lives and revolve it around their child with special needs. Even other kids, their lives revolve around that child. And I remember when the doctor told me all that, and it hit me hard that that our daughter London was going to have this. And I remember thinking, you know what, God, as the leader of this home, I'm not going to stop. I can have everything revolve around our daughter, where we live, how make sure that we are super stable, make sure that she, and that we don't move anywhere, that nothing we do is risky for her, and our life just revolves around her, or that we just fulfill the purpose and the calling that God has for our family, the things and the visions that God has given us. And I feel that when we are fulfilled, that our family is a lot more vibrant.
Absolutely.
Our family is a lot more fulfilled. So many of you have gone through a hardship, and I can guarantee you, you do not go through a hardship alone.
Yeah.
You might be single, or you might be married, but it's going to affect someone else. It's going to affect either your family, it's going to affect either your friends, it's going to affect your parents. And a lot of times we just want to stop there, but you got to keep moving forward. I know, and in that moment, I'm not telling you, okay, at that moment, like, all right, let's move, let's go after, you got to take that moment and plan and look at, okay, where are we at with our life and what do we want to do?
See the reality.
And I think too, I actually thought this. I was like, what would my daughter want?
Yeah.
Would she want to, want us to, hey guys, just give up everything and just take care of me? Or would she want to feel like, hey, I want to be as normal as possible. I want to contribute as much as possible into this family. I want to be a part of this family by helping take this family move forward. And I feel that we have honored our daughter by doing those things. And in a lot of these times that we have broken down, we've broken down individually.
Yeah.
I have cried in my car many times, and I've cried holding my daughter in her room at times, and Sarah has had those moments as well. And we've had those moments where we both feel like, what the heck is going on?
Yes, absolutely.
Those moments where we're like, what do we do? What, where we both don't have each other. And at these moments, we're like, well, let's do what we know to do. And so kind of the first thing that I want to share with you that God has been leading me through, that the main perspective I feel that is foundational through this, what I feel sets us apart, and we hear this often, but this is so concrete, is God has to be your anchor. God has to be an anchor in your life. In other words, if God says He is good, then you have to believe that God is good despite your circumstance.
Yes.
Because once you start thinking, well, maybe God is not good, well, maybe God does not exist, well, maybe God is not here, well, maybe God is, maybe I did something wrong that God is punishing me. Maybe God is punishing me for stuff I did when I was 8 years old. Maybe God is punishing me for that, time when I saw a magazine at 13 years old, that time that I thought, and all this stuff, you start going through these things and you start losing your anchor in God. At that point, your life goes into a place where it's just chaotic. Because and I think in these moments where we have gone through it, where we have even doubted sometimes God and doubted His goodness, I go back and I'm like, well, let God be true.
Yeah.
And everything else a lie. Let God be true. I am going to keep believing that God is good, that God is for us, that God is a God that wants to bless us and lead us to have a vibrant life.
Yeah.
Because once you start diminishing that, and once you start losing that, you start moving backwards. You start losing sight of what God has for you, what God wants to do through your life. And so it's very important that in this moment, in whatever moment you're going through, and a lot of times, let me tell you, okay, that's easy to say, but how do you strengthen that? Well, let me tell you, you're not just going to see God as good, you're not just going to see God as for you if you don't read your Bible, if you don't pray, if you don't know God, if you don't know history with God. For example, if somebody told me something like, hey, did you know your wife did this? I'm like, you know what? I know my wife. I've talked to my wife. We have conversations about, stuff all the time. We go on date nights. We have a beautiful relationship. So you're a lie. You're making stuff up. Because I know her. I talk to her. We have a strong relationship. And so the first thing is you have to start building a strong relationship with God so that when the waves come, when the trials come, when the darkness comes, you're anchored in God. So a lot of times when people go through hardships and they don't have that strong relationship with God, they're rocked. And they're crying out for support. And people ask us all the time. I mean, I lost count how many times people have asked us, how do you guys do it? How are you guys living through this?
Yeah.
And and it's not like we're fake, it's not like we're just really trying hard to look good in front of people. I think it's that we just, at the end of the day, we say, God, you are good. God, you are going to get us through this. Whether our daughter lives and she gets a miracle and she gets healed and she ends up being that singer and worship leader and that person that we just always kind of thought of, or whether she dies at 2 years old. God, you are good.
Yeah.
God, you are for us. God, you love us. And her life will be a testimony because we believed in your goodness, because we believed in you. And so that's kind of personally one of the things that I felt has got me through this is I keep going back to what my anchor is, what my view of God is. If you don't have a view of God, you need to build one up. You need to build history with God, trust with God. There's times where I felt God has let me down, and I'm like, oh, wait a minute, God, you saved me. I thought you let me down at that moment, but you actually spared my life at that moment by keeping me away from that decision.
And actually, while you were talking, Carlos, I was thinking about this story that happened with London, and I actually haven't, shared this story with pretty much anyone except for you before. My first reaction and stuff was just like, oh, well, it's okay because, she's just going to get healed. Like, everything's fine and stuff. And I kind of just like went on, and every single time that we were, going through.
Which worried me in a sense because I'm going to trust you. And Sarah was constantly, and just to go along with her story, she was constantly like, oh, no, not a big deal. God's going to heal her right now. God's going to heal her, this time next month. God's going to heal her in about, 10 hours. That God just, well, I won't spoil.
No, that's good. And so, whenever that all happened and stuff, I remember like I would just get really excited and stuff, and I would turn to Carlos and I was like, babe, so let me tell you my dream. Like, I'm super excited. Like, once London gets healed, which I know it's going to be like really soon and stuff, I want to go to Disney World with her and Isaac and the whole family and stuff to celebrate her healing. I was like, I don't care if it puts us in debt. I don't care what it does. Like, I want to go to Disney World with the kids and let London and just celebrate that healing. And and stuff. So I kept telling him and all this stuff. And then not like all that long after all of that had happened, my parents had let me know, like, hey, so next year we want to take you guys to Disney World. And I was like, oh, it's a sign, like this is it. And I started just wrapping my heart and my mind around her getting healed by that trip, and that was a gift from God to be that healing celebration, And so, sorry, this is such a deep story. But anyway, so
I'm like moved. I'm like, and what happened?
So, we're getting ready for the trip and everything, and my heart just starts getting a little bit more like uneasy and stuff about it.
As we get closer and closer.
As we get closer and closer to the trip and stuff, and I was like, God, I know that this is it. This is that trip and stuff, because that's what I wanted. I wanted that to be the trip. I wanted that to be the day and stuff that we were gonna go and celebrate this healing, and stuff. And so I thought about it every single day. I was like, I can't wait to go on this trip because we're gonna finally be able to run with my baby girl, and she's gonna take pictures with all of the princesses and all this stuff. And I would, just get so into it and everything. And we're like a week away from the trip, and I'm just like all down, and Carlos is like, Sarah, we're going to Disney, your most favorite place in the world. Like, why are you down? And I was like,
down is an understatement.
Yeah,
I walk like, in and Sarah's world was crushed. And
yeah.
Go ahead.
And so I was crushed, and I was like, well, babe, I wanted London to run at Disney. I wanted her to meet the princesses for the first time and run to them and talk to them and enjoy Disney, and stuff. And I was like, I even bought all the clothes that I wanted her to wear that I envisioned her running in. I bought outfits that I envisioned my little girl walking in and running in, and stuff. And so we're getting closer and closer, and each day I'm like, well, maybe this is going to be the day. Maybe this is going to be the day. And we're on the plane ride over and stuff, and it hadn't happened, and stuff. And I get to Disney, and there is this huge revelation, epiphany that I'm going to save you a lot of years in your life to understand this and stuff, and that's life does not always go the way that we plan. In fact, the majority of the time, it doesn't happen the way that we have planned, and stuff. We have all these different ideas and things inside of our head, and we play them off so much that we create this whole other world inside of our mind and stuff. And then at the moment it doesn't happen, the moment those dreams are crushed because it didn't happen the way that we wanted it, everything just goes down.
Yeah, that expectation is shattered.
And so like we're in Disney and I was like, I have a choice right now. I have a choice. I have my family here and stuff. Am I going to let this bring me down? Or am I going to step up as the mother of my children, as the wife, as, being who I am, and keep going and continue going? And because God is God and he's sovereign and he is good, and stuff. And I was thinking that like in our lives, like no matter what it is that you have going on, this was my reality. My reality is that I expected that my daughter was going to run up to a princess at Disney World. That was my vision, that was my dream and stuff. And you know what? It didn't happen at the time and the place that I wanted it to happen, but I had to make a choice. And inside of your life, no matter what it may be going on inside of your life right now, or it could have even been years ago, we can live in bitterness taking up from 5, 10, 20 years where we're like, what I thought was gonna happen didn't happen. And now I'm like this. And I want to tell you right now today that will not take your life anywhere. We can't hold on to those kind of things. If you want to live an unproductive, unsuccessful life, then you live on the past things that haven't happened. But if we look forward and we say, you know what? God is God and he is good. And no matter what his timing is, I am going to put my faith and my trust in him. And he's going to take you to a whole nother level. Right now, I was just talking with Carlos the other day, and I was like, things didn't happen the way that I planned. I didn't plan on having a daughter that had these disabilities. I didn't plan on having her seizing every day and end up in ICU. And, we actually wanted to bring her out tonight. You come up with so many different plans, and they change. We want to bring her out tonight, but she got sick. So we had to take her to the doctor, and she's, couldn't stop coughing and she's seizing and stuff. And so we were like, we really can't bring her out tonight. Plans. We make plans, but they change, and stuff. And this isn't exactly what I was expecting. But now I look back and I was telling Carlos that's where I, was going with that and stuff. I was telling Carlos, I was like, you know what? I think right now I'm the happiest I have ever been in my entire life. I am joyful. I have this just life inside me. Our whole family has come together. And this is where I wanted to say that, like, we had a situation that happened inside of our life, and it was hard and it was strenuous and it it had that stressful feel and stuff. But God can take whatever bad has happened in your life and change it to good. Yeah. Our family went to another level. Our marriage went to another level. Our children are happy and stuff because we made a choice to say, you know what, things are not happening the way that we wanted them to happen, but we choose as a family together to move forward in Christ.
And as we conclude, we have a couple of minutes left. I wrote this down. I was thinking, okay, what is that thing that I feel could really, that revelation, that thing that we can hold on to. And a lot of times, let me tell you this, a lot of times we are afraid to confront God. A lot of times we are afraid to put God on trial. But can I tell you that the person that experienced the depth of God, the riches of God the most, put God on trial the most, put God he put God and said, God, where are you? God, you have left me. God, you have abandoned me. And next thing you know, it's like, God, you are the maker of the heavens and the earth. God, you are the one that sustains me. You are the lifter of my life, the lifter of my soul. And it's in these moments when you go through these hardships, a lot of times we're just like, okay, I don't want to, okay, well, you try to kind of ignore God and be like, all right, well, God, you're there, okay, but you just, and a lot of times, God, just talk to God.
Yeah.
Be real with God. Confront God. Say, God, you let me down. And you're going to watch, and you're telling God, God, you let me down. God, you were not there. God, you were absent. God, you broke my heart. God, my daughter is going through this. God, my daughter might die right now. God, where are you? Why are you letting this happen? Next thing you know, I say, God, I have had, every time I've been that way with God, you know what I walked out with? Not an atheist, not being an atheist. I walked out with pages of revelation.
Yeah.
I walked out with saying, babe, God spoke to me.
Yes.
Because a lot of times when you do something like that, you empty yourself of those doubts. You just empty yourself of all those things that are happening, and God says, okay, now I can refill you. God says, now I can put something else in there. Now I can show you a new aspect of my nature, a new aspect of my love, a new aspect of who I am. It's like that. It's as simple as whenever you're in a marriage and you go through a fight, the makeup process is sometimes even better than the fight. You know, it's in these moments with God when you say, God, you let me down. And I've had many of these moments when, you know, I remember the first time I experienced this, because I had never wanted to, like, oh God, I don't want to get in your space, was when my beautiful aunt, who was a pastor, died of cancer. And it was, you know, one of my favorite aunts amongst all of them. And she died of cancer, believing that God would heal her. And I remember getting mad at God in my living room and being so mad. And it was about 20 minutes of just like saying, God, God this, God, you know, talking to God. And next thing you know it, I had an awesome, God spoke to me in a mighty way. And no matter what you're going through, listen, I know you're going through stuff.
Yeah.
Whether it's small, whether it's big, maybe things are not the way they should be. Talk to God. Be real with God. If you read the Psalms, that's why the Psalms is like the biggest book of the Bible, because David talked to God and God spoke to him. He's like, oh, okay, David talked to God and God spoke to him, and he wrote it and he wrote it and he wrote it. And you read the Psalms and you're like, how is this lifting my spirit? You hear David say, God, where are you? And then you read towards the end and you're like, oh God, you were there all the time. God, you were there when I went through this, and now you're here when I went through this.
Yeah.
And I want to leave you with that. I want to leave you with, have a real relationship with God. Talk to God. If you do not have a relationship with God, I'm sure that maybe as we were talking, you were like, and that's why God doesn't exist. And that's why God isn't real. And that's why blah, 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 blah. And I know your mind's thinking of these things, but look, we have experienced God in even a greater way than the way it surpasses our doubts. It surpasses those moments of darkness. His light has shined brighter than any of those moments that we have gone through. It is because you have to talk with God. You got to know God. And it's in these moments that God becomes bigger and larger, and he becomes more of an anchor in your life.